This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. The President and First Lady traveled to Dayton, Ohio and El Paso, Texas today, the scenes of twin mass shootings over the weekend. The President responded to claims his rhetoric helped cause the shootings as calls for stronger gun control laws grow louder. Dale Hurd has the story.
After arriving in Dayton, President Trump and the First Lady headed to a hospital where many of the victims of Sunday's attack were treated. The White House says the president planned to thank first responders and medical staff. But the protest against his visits began at the airport and continued at the hospital. Before he left for Ohio, the president responded to Democrat claims that his rhetoric is responsible for the shooting.
So my critics are political people. They're trying to make points. In many cases, they're running for president and they're very low in the polls. A couple of them in particular, very low in the polls. So these are people that are looking for political gain. I don't think they're getting it. And as much as possible, I've tried to stay out of that.
After the deadly killings in El Paso and Dayton, lawmakers on both sides are calling for gun reform. One bill gaining bipartisan support would create a federal program to encourage states to adopt so-called red flag laws to take guns away from people who pose an imminent danger. Ohio Republican Governor Mike DeWine backs that bill.
We have to empower people to get help for family or loved ones who may be a danger to themselves or a danger to others.
And President Trump says he's looking into the possibility of a background check law.
Well, I'm looking to do background checks. I think background checks are important. I don't want to put guns into the hands of mentally unstable people or people with rage or hate, sick people. I don't want to, I'm all in favor of it.
The House has already passed 2 background check bills, but the Senate has not acted on them. And now the halls of Congress are empty. Lawmakers are in August recess.
Now is the time for action, not to be away or time off.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Several prominent pastors say prayer is very much needed in our nation, and the mass shootings in America are a clear result of a spiritual crisis in the nation. Pastor Greg Laurie of Harvest Christian Fellowship in Riverside, California, and Dr. Jack Graham, pastor of Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano, Texas, talked in an Instagram video about what Christians need to do in response to the senseless violence and hatred.
One thing that you never hear talked about on the news is this simple fact. There's evil in the world. Man is not basically good. Man is basically sinful. Number 2, there's a devil. And the devil's not down in hell. He's working in this world right now. The Bible even calls him the God of this world, the prince of the power of the air. And Jesus said of Satan, the thief, comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. So I think when a person picks up a gun and decides to go and slaughter innocent people, this is an act of pure evil motivated by Satan himself. And it seems to me, Jack, that we need to really be praying in our nation for a spiritual awakening, because we're seeing more and more of these acts of violence and so many other problems in our country as well.
No doubt about that. So we pray. We have spiritual weapons, prayer. I know people even want to minimize prayer. Well, all you do is pray. The most important thing we can do for people right now is to pray. Pray that God will comfort them. Pray for our communities. Pray for churches. Pray for spiritual awakening. Pray for revival. Because if this is, as I believe you're exactly right, a war against evil, against Satan himself, then God has promised us a victory, and that victory is in Christ and Christ alone.
Evangelist Franklin Graham is also calling on the nation to pray for the families of the victims and their communities. He wrote on Facebook, "The Word of God tells us to mourn with those who mourn, and as we mourn with these families and communities, let's continue to sincerely lift them up in prayer before the Lord. He is the only one who can comfort and wholly heal their broken hearts." And you can see the full video and story at cbnnews.com. Vice President Mike Pence spoke about the power of faith and prayer to help heal in the aftermath of devastating tragedies like this past weekend's mass shootings.
The Bible tells us that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, that he'll hear from heaven and he'll heal our land. And in this dark hour for the people of El Paso and Dayton, we do well to pray.
Pence went on to talk about the importance of community, saying the greatest form of community in the modern world is faith. A Texas grandmother is credited with preventing another possible mass shooting. Federal authorities in Lubbock, Texas have charged 19-year-old William Patrick Williams with making false statements to a federally licensed firearms dealer. According to prosecutors, Williams was allegedly plotting a mass shooting and gave the gun dealer an old address. According to court documents, Williams' grandmother had contacted authorities when he called and told her he was homicidal and suicidal. He had purchased an AK-47 and said he planned to shoot up a local hotel and then commit suicide by cop. The mass shooting in El Paso puts more attention on the polarized issue of border security. CBN's David Brody sat down with the head of U.S. Customs and Border Protection to discuss the situation, including charges of concentration camps on the border and the controversy over family separations.
The hot issue of immigration is even hotter after the suspected El Paso shooter confessed to targeting Hispanics invading the country.
Let's make no mistake, this was done by an individual who was sick, who was evil.
Mark Morgan is acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and he spoke with CBN News about the tragedy and whether rhetoric from President Trump is to blame.
He is the one responsible for the murder of those individuals and nobody else.
How concerned are you about some of the rhetoric?
I think rhetoric is in one category, and then the acts of this individual, this depraved coward, is in another category.
For the former Marine and FBI agent, the deadly shooting just adds to an already busy and controversial list. Recently, he's had to deal with accusations from far-left Democrats that the border detention centers are more like concentration camps.
I was just outraged. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that that's not just rhetoric. If somebody says, anybody says, that we're running concentration camps, that's just a lie. It's a flat-out lie.
He says another flat-out lie is the notion family separation is an official administration policy.
There's never been a family separation policy. It doesn't exist. It never will exist. It was a zero tolerance policy, which meant if you came here under Statute 1325, you came here illegally, that was a crime. Just like we do in the interior United States. If someone commits a crime and they go to jail, Child Protective Services take the children.
Morgan says roughly 1 million people will illegally enter America this year. The challenge is that the U.S. system isn't equipped to deal with the increase in migrant families.
Back in the 90s, 2000s, we reached over 1 million, but the majority of those were adult males, and we sent them back right away. Now, the majority, 65%, are family units and children. And because of our broken laws, they're released into the interior United States, never to be heard from again. That's what we have to focus on.
Morgan says Congress must fix certain loopholes to discourage the heavy influx.
They could pass legislation in 15 minutes and 85–90% of this crisis would go away.
Do you have any hope that Congress will step up to the plate? I mean, it's been years, decades.
None. They're not going to pass any meaningful legislation to address the loopholes in our legal framework.
Despite Congress's inaction, Morgan, who also worked for President Obama, says President Trump has been a man of action.
This president and this administration has done more to address this crisis than any other administration before. The government of Mexico has stepped up, and they are supporting this as a regional crisis in unprecedented ways like they have never done before. And that's a direct result of this president.
And speaking of Mexico, that brings us to, yes, the wall. Is the wall being built? If so, how much of it, and what are the plans for the future?
So the answer to that is yes, absolutely. The wall is being built. Right now, I think we're up to about 54, 55 miles of new wall that has been built.
A recent Supreme Court decision allowing the administration to use Defense Department funding for construction will ramp things up.
That's probably going to give us the ability to build in excess of 450 miles. The majority of that, we're going to have that done by the end of 2020.
In Mark Morgan's busy world, he just focuses one day at a time. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
A federal judge ruled 3 Arkansas abortion restrictions she temporarily blocked will remain on hold while she considers a lawsuit challenging them. One measure would prohibit abortion after 18 weeks. Another requires doctors performing abortions to be board certified. And the third bill bans doctors from performing an abortion on Down syndrome babies. The laws are being challenged by the state's last standing surgical abortion clinic and Planned Parenthood. A Christian advocacy group is boycotting Whole Foods for supporting Drag Queen Story Hour. During these events, men dressed up as women read LGBTQ-themed books to young children. They're held in public places, including libraries, as part of a nationwide LGBTQ agenda to teach children diversity. 1 million moms started a petition urging Whole Foods to no longer sponsor these events after the city of Atlanta LGBTQ Affairs tweeted that Whole Foods was the latest sponsor for its Drag Queen Story Hour. The tweet also said that the NBA team, the Atlanta Hawks, and the NFL team, the Atlanta Falcons, were also sponsors. Shortly after announcing through Instagram that he was kissing his marriage and Christianity goodbye, Joshua Harris, former pastor and author of the popular book I Kissed Dating Goodbye, was recently seen marching in Vancouver's Pride Festival. Regarding his life changes, Harris posted on Instagram about the responses he's received, saying, quote, "I've received grace from Christians, atheists, evangelicals, ex-evangelicals, straight people, LGBTQ people, and everyone in between. Of course, there have also been strong words of rebuke from religious people. While not always pleasant, I know they are seeking to love me." 2 Cedar Rapids, Iowa pastors decided to meet once a week to have prayer together and ultimately decided to merge their churches. The Gospel Coalition reports the 2 pastors, Rod Dooley from the African-American Oak Hill Jackson Community Church and Daniel Wynn of the predominantly white Cedar Rapids Family Church, met to pray together, then came up with the idea to unite their congregations. The new church is called New City Church because they and their members want to help renew and unite their city. Sounds wonderful. Well, coming up, diet products with artificial sweeteners may be doing your weight loss efforts and your health more harm than good.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Welcome back to Newswatch. If you drink or eat anything with artificial sweeteners, you might want to reconsider. Research shows they can hurt our brains and heart, and believe it or not, don't even help us lose weight. Lori Johnson has the story.
This country's weight problem is only getting worse. The CDC reports a staggering 71% of adults qualifies as overweight or obese. The result? Things like heart disease, cancer, diabetes. In June, the New England Journal of Medicine reported the whole world is getting fatter and paying a price. 4 million deaths, 60% caused by obesity, but the other 40% by just being overweight.
Health experts say the root cause of our weight problem can be summed up in one word: sugar. Most Americans consume about 160 pounds of it a year. Oftentimes, it's hidden in foods you'd never expect, like yogurt, peanut butter, pasta sauce, and bread. Then other times, it's right out front, like in soda. This one can contains more than 9 teaspoons of sugar.
It's no wonder so many people turn to diet sodas containing zero-calorie artificial sweeteners to reduce their sugar intake. But that's a bad choice for a number of reasons. A new Boston University study revealed people who drank diet soda have 3 times the risk of developing dementia and having a stroke. And that's people who just drink 1 a day.
So artificial sweeteners, we think, are much worse than we ever thought.
The Cleveland Clinic's Dr. Michael Roizen says artificial sweeteners like aspartame, saccharin, and sucralose can disrupt what's known as our microbiome.
Your microbiome is the bacteria inside your gut. Those artificial sweeteners cause a separate breed of bacteria to grow inside you.
Neurologist David Perlmutter says artificial sweeteners throw off the delicate balance of good and bad bacteria.
The bacteria that live within our gut nurture the brain when they're treated right. They reduce inflammation, for example. Inflammation is the key player that causes multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and even Alzheimer's, and coronary artery disease, and diabetes for that matter as well.
Perlmutter says in addition to avoiding artificial sweeteners, consider taking probiotics to increase good bacteria and prebiotics to maintain healthy levels.
We consume artificial sweeteners to control our weight, but believe it or not, a number of scientific studies show they actually cause us to gain weight.
One reason goes right back to the gut.
The body thinks it's starving and holds on to every calorie that a person consumes. So here are people consuming diet drinks and gaining weight. And that doesn't seem to make any sense. And yet, we now see that it's happening because of changes in the gut bacteria. The risk of developing diabetes is dramatically increased 2-fold in people who drink a lot of sugarless beverages. Who knew?
Nutritionist J.J. Virgin says the artificial sweeteners stevia, xylitol, erythritol, and monk fruit appear to be better choices for the gut. However, they can still lead to weight gain.
But there's also a phenomenon that happens called calorie dysregulation that they saw with artificial sweeteners. When you eat something that's got a sweet taste with no calories, your body can't calibrate the degree of sweetness with how many calories, so it causes you to tend to overeat.
Then there's our own DNA. Genetics predispose an estimated 3/4 of us to have an addiction to sweets, meaning the more we take in artificial sweeteners, the more we crave all sweets. That's why health experts recommend removing the taste for sweets altogether.
Sweet is a learned taste. If you go off sweet, if you go off sugar, if your brain doesn't get used to it, if your taste buds don't get used to it, you can avoid it, and that's a much healthier state.
Virgin proved this theory with 700 sugar addicts.
First, we taper down for a week. We don't cook cold turkey, but then we lower their sugar impact down. We start using more spices and more savory and getting enough protein in and getting healthy fats in. And then at the end of 2 weeks, we go back and test. And these sugar addicts told me that sweet food just tasted gross.
So while eating too much sugar is definitely hazardous, artificial sweeteners can be just as bad for you, maybe worse. That's why the healthiest solution is to remove all sweets from your diet, both real and fake. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Still ahead, the real-life story of former NFL player Brian Banks' journey to professional football and how charges of a violent crime almost derailed his dream and his life.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Brian Banks is a former NFL football player who was a standout high school player with big dreams of playing in college and pro football. Then he was falsely accused of a violent crime. CBN's Ephraim Graham has his story and what he's doing now to help others in the same place.
Brian Banks signed with the Atlanta Falcons back in April of 2013. The linebacker's football career is short, but his journey to the NFL is long, filled with twists, turns, and pitfalls.
I was 16 the day my life changed for the worst. 16 when I became a product of the penal system. 16 when I was wrongfully accused of rape. 16 when the courts tried me as an adult. My final day of freedom, I was 16.
Banks is now an executive producer on the major motion picture, telling his story with actor Aldis Hodge in the leading role.
By the time I was 16, I had the attention of the NFL. Don't move! But I was accused of something I didn't do. The system doesn't care about me.
But you didn't deserve what happened to you.
I got clean.
I was on my way to USC on a full scholarship, and then I was wrongfully convicted of a crime I didn't commit.
Brian Banks lost 10 years of his life. We have 10 months to clear his name.
Justin Brooks is the founder of the California Innocence Project, helping people that have been wrongfully convicted of a crime.
My job in this film is to honor Brian and his legacy. Come at me with all these legal excuses about the system, about how the truth doesn't matter. The truth matters.
I know it matters. I know that. Okay, and that tape is extraordinary. I agree, but I can't do anything legally.
Okay, stop. Okay? You know what, man, forget the tape, okay? Because I see what's going on here. You're sitting there trying to figure out how to let me down easy again when you know what, that's not gonna happen. You want extraordinary? I'll tell you what's extraordinary about this case. I am.
Actress and comedian Sherry Shepherd plays Brian's mother in the film.
I remember saying to Brian's mother, how did you deal with all of this? And she said it was a lot of prayer.
I was 22 when I first saw freedom again. I had spent 5 years and 2 months locked away. My days now monitored, a GPS tracking device strapped to my ankle. and I'm expected to find work and live a normal life.
This is something that can happen to anybody. Anybody can be wrongfully convicted.
I am innocent, and the truth matters.
It's about lost opportunity, false accusation, and vindication.
This movie is to raise awareness about the flaws within our judicial system, but this movie is also about inspiring people that the only thing that truly matters is what you allow into your life and how you allow it to affect you.
Looks like a powerful movie there. Brian Banks, the movie opens August 9th, and you can find more entertainment news on Studio 5 tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, Kanye West tells rapper Nicki Minaj he's now a born-again Christian.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Kanye West, who has been hosting invite-only church-style services on Sundays recently, is apparently now a born-again Christian. News of West's alleged faith came from fellow rapper Nicki Minaj. She says West, seen here singing at a spring music festival, told her he turned to God in 2016 when he was hospitalized and ultimately diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Minaj went on to say she noticed a change in West's demeanor the last time she saw the fashion designer. Back around Easter, West brought a gospel music event to Coachella Music Festival in California, singing "This Is the Day" with a gospel choir. That's a great way to end the show, and that's it for this edition of NewsWatch. You can find more on the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com and can watch CBN News programs anytime on our CBN News Channel. Plus, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a great day.